Welcome back to the program. I'm Roby Brock. Time now to talk politics. We have two of our Talk Business and Politics contributors with us. We have John Burris and Tamika Edwards. Good to have you both
Good to
on
be
the
here.
set again after the election. It's good. Yeah.
Good.
We're recovered. We're rested. We're rejuvenated. We're ready to go to a legislative session.
Correct.
So first, we're going to talk about what's been going on in national politics this week. Washington, D.C. has been crazy. I would not want to be there for the life of me. I like watching from the sidelines here. Let's start with President Trump's looking for a chief of staff. John, are you in the running?
Not that I know of. Yeah.
Who would want to take that job at this point in time? Anyone?
I think it would be hard to want to do the job just because Trump, the job is to largely manage the office and the man, and both seem pretty difficult to do. I don't think it's necessarily the crisis that the media kind of loves to play it up. The palace intrigue is what they call it. Someone's going to take the job, and it will be fine, and it'll be a good career move for them, likely, because at the end of the day, you're a White House chief of staff.
You think it'd be a good career move for them in the middle of the dumpster fire that's going on with all the legal and controversies and landmines? What do you think about that?
No. And I think that's probably why there's been such a hard time to locate one, and even someone else just pulled his name out of the running. So I'm not sure. I think that the large amount of turnover in the White House is concerning, and I think that people may not want to be caught in that crossfire. So
it could be a good career move for someone. If you're stupid, I wouldn't do it because a lot of stupid people around Trump have gotten themselves indicted.
Yeah.
that's true.
All right, so let's talk about that. The legal jeopardy that the president seems to be in, would suggest that it is ratcheting up and that it is going to become even, I'm trying to think of the right word, just more dangerous, I guess, for the president to stay out of legal trouble. What are the circles that you guys run in terms of politics? What is the average guy on the street saying?
Well, I mean, the average guy, and of course I'm around students as well, people are paying attention to what's happening. I think people are particularly, the temper tantrum I think we saw in the White House.
Pelosi
Correct.
and Schumer, yeah.
And I think that has some type of chill over our democracy, and I think it's concerning. But regular people are paying attention and are thinking that there is trouble in paradise.
I thought Vice President Mike Pence was auditioning for Weekend at Bernie's Part 2, but anyhow, what are people saying in your circles, John?
I'd say two things. I'll come back to the Pelosi-Schumer deal. It seems legally, though, first, that the president is pretty exposed here. When you read these plea agreements, it seems virtually impossible that he's not going to get indicted for something. Now, I don't think it's going to be Russian collusion, because I think that's probably just a lot of, as I've said before, the apple dumpling gang of people around him making some stupid choices, but there was no parking garage exchange of a manila folder type deal. But when the special counsel investigates and they've lived sloppy lives with lots of financial arrangements, he's going to get indicted for something, and that's pretty much, I'd say, a certainty at this point.
Are you going to come back to Pelosi and Schumer with?
Well, yeah, Pelosi and Schumer, I'd say, those are the moments where I almost like Trump because this whole form, and I think a lot of people, Arkansans and even Americans, like it too because that's the appeal. Instead of these kind of half-baked, come out, act like we're friends, but then give the highlights, and so just let's argue about these things in front of everyone, like we campaign on. I think people like that, and they don't like the structure and the formality and stiffness that Washington usually presents.
But I think that grows over into how we treat one another every single day, right? And so we tell our children, do as I say, not as I do, but we tell children not to have those kinds of arguments and petty fights in front of people, or period. And so I think that is just showing people exactly how to come to one of the highest offices in our land, and I think it's disrespectful.
I don't disagree. It's just what the difference is, like Pelosi, Schumer, and a lot of Republicans too, will go have that type of behavior at a rally when they're speaking to a base, but then they come to Washington and stand behind a podium and act different.
They play nice.
Yep. So if you're going to do it out on the campaign trail, just do it face to face when it actually matters too.
All right, we'll end that one there, but let's move on to criminal justice reform at the federal level. This has been a bipartisan push, beginning in the U.S. Senate right now, a split among the Arkansas delegation. Senator Bozeman supportive of this, Senator Cotton opposed to this. Tamika, why should someone support this criminal justice reform package?
Well, maybe not all the reasons why. Just a couple of things I think are important, like the 2010 explanation of crack versus cocaine. That has been a huge issue, primarily in the African American community, where individuals would get more time for crack than they do for cocaine. That's a part of this particular bill. Thinking about the amount of money that is spent on incarcerating individuals, and some of those funds could be used for to help individuals on the front end and maybe drug abuse rehabilitation. I couldn't get that out. I was just going on and on. But so I think that will have some type of impact. I've not read the entire bill. I just know parts of it, and those are the parts that give me some hope. I know that we will never have a perfect bill, but this is probably a good start.
Yeah, why do we see a split in the Senate delegation?
There's a lot of money in the Republican movement right now for this type of project. They think that from a political standpoint, they think that it helps the Republican brand. So there's a lot of national dollars that have really pushed it, and I think that's coming to a collision point with people who are just ideologically opposed to it, like Senator Cotton. And so that's why it's coming to a head. I think Senator Cotton has made good points. 2 weeks ago, he started making the point about violent offenders and sex offenders and how the bill was going to allow early release. Most people said, no, that's not true. Then they offered an amendment to clarify that it was not, and change some language that actually turns out validated his point.
Still didn't win his support for the bill, though. So,
no,
yeah.
and he's got an amendment out there with Senator Kennedy to clarify some of those points further. It seems like the bill is going to get a vote, and hopefully they can make changes that actually clarifies what the intent of the bill is, because as written, people like Senator Cotton claim that it's going to let dangerous people out of jail.
Helps to be running in 2020 to say that you're opposed to letting dangerous people out of jail. So I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So there's some politics there. Let's take a quick commercial break. We're going to come back and talk about some more things at the state level with John Burris and Tamika Edwards. I'm Roby Brock. We're back right after this. And welcome back to the program. We're talking politics with John Burris, Tamika Edwards. Let's turn our attention to Arkansas Works. This week, we learned that there's going to be a phone helpline installed that will allow recipients of Arkansas Works that need to report by phone. John Burris, why all of a sudden are we installing a phone line for this purpose, and will it make a difference?
I think Tamika and her advocates and a lot of people had pointed out flaws with the website, and I think they were fair in some ways. I don't, more reporting is great. For me personally, there's nothing wrong with the work requirement and the idea behind it. And I think the governor and DHS are making attempts to simplify the process because of the concern around it. I don't think they ever intended, intentionally to make people lose coverage who are trying to report. Some of this is just a learning process, and so there's more ways to report now. People need to report because you ought to be working if you're able to, which the population we're talking about are able-bodied working adults. And so there's plenty of exemptions, but you got to be showing some activity if you want fully subsidized health insurance, and I think that's fair.
Tamika, John gave you credit.
I know,
I got a note on that one right
know.
there. So
Thanks,
John Burris on the
and
record.
my band of advocates.
So will this make a difference?
I'm not sure if it will make a big difference. I think what this shows is a larger problem of excluding individuals who will be impacted from the initial conversations, right? And so when we have and make conversations in a vacuum, we have a lot of unintended consequences. And I think that pushing policies onto people without having their voice and without having them represented at the table, we probably would have been able to avoid this very thing, and probably spending more money than what we should on a program that may or may not have the intended.
Yeah. Are you saying when the works requirement was put in place by the legislature that the voices weren't being heard, that this was a negative? Because I mean, there were plenty of forces up there lobbying against it.
Well, plenty of forces. And so even though forces were lobbying against it, there were also other proposals in place to maybe make it better for individuals to report. And so had we really taken a step back and looked at those proposals, there probably wouldn't have been something like this in the very end to include a telephone line.
All right, let's turn our attention to the legislative session coming up in January. It's not that far away. We'll get the holidays behind us pretty soon. What are you guys gearing up for in the legislative session? You both will have some hats on up there around the Capitol. What will you be doing up there?
Well, more so of exposing our students to the process. Social justice is my life and it's my work, and making sure that public policies.
You're the director of the Social
Yes,
Justice
that's
Institute at
right.
Philander Smith College.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so the public policies that are often passed contribute to social injustice, and so we'll be paying attention to those issues that would contribute to it, and hopefully that, they won't pass.
All right. They're doing internships with John's firm.
Oh, John, we need to talk
How
about
about
Well,
that.
I could learn something about social justice, I'm sure.
Hey,
We could
see?
teach each other.
So
That's
John's with
right.
Capital Advisors Group, and you'll have a laundry list of some clients up there too. What will you be focused
We
on?
do. I mean, going forward with Medicaid reforms, highway plan is going to be a big issue, has been a big focus of conversation and how that overlaps with tax reform. So tax reform task force voted last week on some recommendations. I think there are 3 really good options. I hope they go with the one that gets the top rate down to 5.9 the fastest, and that seems to be the direction it's going.
You going for Kansas and Oklahoma?
Absolutely not. And if I were on that task force, I would have banned those words almost, because Kansas cut taxes, they didn't cut spending. We've done the opposite here. We've controlled spending partially through revenue stabilization, and we've reasonably cut taxes. And they're going to keep doing that, and Arkansas is going to become more competitive, and taxpayers get to keep more of their money.
Teacher pay be up there too. That's another big one. Do you see any problems for the increase in teacher pay? The governor's behind it.
Well, the governor is behind it, and I think it's $1,000. Of course, I never see a problem with ensuring that the folks who deal with our children on a day-to-day basis are fairly compensated. So I do not see a problem with that. I do believe there could be more, but
We'll see. What do you think happens on highways?
I don't know. The governor wants.
I feel like I have a cloudy crystal ball on that one. I can't figure out where there's any consensus even building.
There's lots of support. It hasn't coalesced quite yet, but I don't think that's a surprise. I mean, a lot of times people just physically have to be in the building for some progress to be made. And I think on highways that's the case. Governor wants to refer something out to the people. There's a lot of legislators that want to take more urgent action quickly, and hopefully they can get together and come up with the plan that both like.
All right, we'll close out here with some political predictions. Who wants to go first? She's going to let you go first.
I'll say the legislature's going to cut taxes and fund highways.
That's not a prediction. Come
That's
on,
right.
that's a home run, easy one. That one's already done.
China concedes on the tariff fight. Trump claims victory, gets indicted anyway. I think that was 3 predictions.
Can you beat that?
Well, probably not, but I do believe we'll see some financial disclosures from the president now that the Democrats have taken over the House, and we'll probably just see some ramped up more disclosures about what's going on in this White House.
All right, political prediction from me. You will start to hear after first of the year more talk about Sarah Huckabee Sanders coming back to Arkansas and potentially running for office. How about that? Is that a good one to end on?
Sure.
We'll do it.
Yeah.
John has the poker face.
No.
John Burris and Tamika Edwards. We're ending it there. We'll talk more off camera. That is all for today's program. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Roby Brock. We'll see you next time.